This is the Wednesday, December 14th afternoon session of the Portland City Council. We are now in session. Carla, please call the roll.
Udaly, Fritz.
Here.
Fish.
Here.
Saltzman. Wheeler.
Here. First item, please, 1351.
Accept the Oregon Sports Authority's annual report on national and international sports marketing activities and event recruiting services.
Colleagues, there is no council action required on this. This is a report. It's the annual report from the Oregon Sports Authority on their efforts and their accomplishments last year to help build the Portland economy through sports events, and increase national and international attention on our city and our state. We're also going to hear about the exciting things that they're working on for this year as well. This is the OSA's first presentation of an annual report to the Portland City Council. And gentlemen, we're honored to have you here today. An annual report was included in the 2016 agreement with the OSA that also increased the city's support for the organization. And I, for one, am looking forward to this report. I had the honor of serving on the board of the Oregon Sports Authority many years ago, and it was a dynamic and growing organization at the time, and they've only made things all the better since then. We're joined today by Doug Oblitz, who is the board president, and of course Drew Mahalik, who's the executive director. Doug, I understand you're going to kick things off for us today, but if you all want to come on up and introduce yourselves for the record. And Drew, I understand this is the last time you're going to be presenting a report.
This is my last report here, but not done working for the city report.
Very good. And if you could introduce your colleagues as well, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, you thought you got rid of me, but I'm back.
Not a chance.
City Commissioners, it's great to be back in front of the City Council. As you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, I'm the president of the Board of Directors of the Oregon Sports Authority. And the Oregon Sports Authority is a nonprofit organization that works to augment the economy and quality of life for Portlanders and Oregonians through sports development. Effectively, we are the Chamber of Commerce for sports in Oregon. So I'm joined today by Drew Mahalik and Kate, who will, one of our staff members that Drew's going to introduce again later on, and I have another introduction in a few minutes that I'd like to make. But I want to just make a few comments to introduce Drew's part of this. We've had a terrific partnership with the City of Portland that has allowed us to make Portland a nationally and internationally renowned sports destination by securing events, sports conventions, franchises that have generated over $300 million in economic impact since our inception 25 years ago. You are about to hear a stellar report from Drew covering our partnership over the last year, which has been made possible by our partnership and cooperation with the City of Portland. But I wanted to make a couple of quick personal notes before I turn it over to Drew. And first of all, I want to talk about something that's near and dear to me, which is a program called the Tracktown Youth League. It's something that I helped found with the Oregon Sports Authority and Tracktown USA 5 years ago. It is free middle school track meets that are held around the state that culminates in a championship meet at Hayward Field every year. Last year we were in 14 cities around the state, including Portland, but also in places like Hermiston and underserved communities. And we gave kids the chance to run in a track meet and the chance to qualify to come to the mecca of track and field, Hayward Field, where they are treated every year to a meet of their own that's conducted as part of a championship meet. Last year, the NCAAs, the year before the Olympic trials, the year before that, the World Junior Championships. And they get the full championship treatment, the video board, the championship timing, the iconic voice of Paul Swigert, and it is an unbelievable event that gets better and better and better every year. This year, or in 2018, we expect to expand to 2 or 3 additional cities, including we'll be part of the Grand Ronde. We'll be on the Grand Ronde reservation next year. We haven't announced that publicly, but that's something that I guess I just announced. And we couldn't do this without Providence Health and Services, which has been one of our terrific sponsors. But that's a program that has really, really showcased the efforts by the Oregon Sports Authority and the Oregon Sports Authority Foundation to impact the youth of our state and our community and to help encourage healthy lifestyles, which is a big part of our mission. Secondly, I did want to introduce Jim Etzel, who is behind us here. And Jim was just named the new Executive Director and CEO of the Oregon Sports Authority at our board meeting on Tuesday night after an extensive selection process. We are absolutely thrilled to have Jim take over for Drew and his large shoes that need to be filled. Jim is a Portland native, a U of P graduate, and has 3 decades of sports business experience. He previously served on the OSA Board of Directors and founded and led the Etzel Agency, which is a live event agency that produces major sporting events, including the U.S. Olympic Track and Field Trials, the IAAF World Indoor Track and Field Championships, Major League Soccer All-Star Game, and the College Football Playoff. Jim's depth of knowledge and extensive connections in the sports industry, combined with his deep local connections and strong relationships in the Oregon corporate community, set him apart as a candidate, and we're absolutely thrilled to have him. Of course, this means that Drew will be ending his 22-year run as our director and CEO. Drew is a fixture, as you know, on the local sports scene. He's been the go-to guy for the City Council on all sports-related matters, and the fundamental success of the Oregon Sports Authority really is because of Drew's involvement with the agency over 2 decades or more. We wish Drew the very best. He will be working with Jim during the first part of next year on the transition, and then he's off to be a teacher, writer, and who knows? Right. But we really thank Drew for all his work over these last 2 decades. Finally, I wanted to not miss the opportunity to thank the City Council for its support of the Oregon Sports Authority, and we look forward to making our first annual report truly an annual report. We'll be back in coming years to report on our progress. And I also wanted to give a shout out to our City Program Manager, Susan Hartnett, who has been working very, very closely with us to advance our program and sits on our board. So thank you, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Drew.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Doug. Mayor Wheeler, Commissioner Fritz, and Commissioner Fish. My pleasure to be here and give this report, and I echo the remarks of Doug on our gratitude for the partnership with the City of Portland. I also echo his remarks about Jim Etzel. I couldn't have handpicked a better candidate myself to take the baton, so thank you very much for that. Here is our report on some of the major events that we were involved with in the last 12 months for the benefit of the City of Portland and our community. The first one is the 2016 World Roller Derby Championships. We held this, and please note it was at the Veterans Memorial Coliseum. We tend to have a lot of our key events at the VMC, and this was one where we had 300 roller derby champions coming last winter with an economic impact of $1.2 million, and it was a legitimate world championship, and we made great connections with the local roller derby community, and we foresee another world championship down the road. Secondly, and I'm actually really proud of this one. I went to Columbus and with our LBGT community bid for the Gay Softball World Series, and we won that bid. And we brought 4,000 softball players to our city, and you may chuckle a little bit that because of the hurricanes in Florida, some of those softball players stayed an extra week because they couldn't fly back to Florida. But it was a terrific event with 4,000 people coming here and, frankly, attending our hotels, our restaurants, and just a terrific event with a $4 million economic impact. And I think we've established ourselves well with that community to welcome them back in the future as well. This one may also make you chuckle a little bit because we held and helped the World FOOTBAG Championship, which is hacky sack. It was at the Oregon Convention Center. And one thing you may not know is that the inventor of hacky sack is actually right from this area. And which is frankly why the event was held here. But once again, it's using the Oregon Convention Center. It's using our Portland hotels. It had over 1 million unique internet viewers and well over $100,000 economic impact.
Looking at the photograph here, and I am chuckling. The reason I'm chuckling is I'm thinking, what a great cocktail party conversation it would be to say, I am a hacky sack World FOOTBAG referee. And so I'm just looking at the guy on the chair going, what kind of training did he have?
You know, you got to be extremely coordinated and understand the intricacies of the sport. But, you know, everybody knows what hacky sack is, but who knew they had a world championship?
That's great.
But it was here in our own convention center.
Well, the other thing that occurs to me on that, back in England, they had a competition called Spot the Ball, where they show a photograph of a soccer game, and you wrote in saying, put an X where you thought the ball was going to be, because they're taking it out. And that would be a really good one to take the hacky sack ball out and have a similar competition to see whether people would be close or not.
So another one, and this is one of my favorites, is the Little League Softball World Series. It's held yearly at Alpenrose. And I should tell you, there are cities that are always trying to steal that event from the city of Portland. This is on ESPN. It's got great coverage, and it shows Portland extremely well because, frankly, it's during the summer when we are looking better than any other city in the country. But, you know, we get 10 teams that come from each section or each region of our nation, plus we get a European representative, a South American representative, an African representative, and an Asian representative, and a Canadian representative. And so it really is an international Little League Softball World Series that's just great. And really the Cadenoff family out at Alpenrose is very generous.
So Drew, knowing that there's other cities all around the world who would like to host the Little League Softball World Series for girls, what keeps it here? What are some of the points that make it so that the Little League Softball World Series chooses Portland over?
Well, we try to make it as attractive as possible with the headquarters hotel. That we actually, place them at University Place in downtown Portland. We give them the signage and the notoriety, the banners. The Cadenoffs give them a pristine field that they cover a lot of the costs for that themselves. And it's just a terrific venue where nobody charges for parking. I think the snow cones are $1 a piece. It's got a great crowd following that people come, even when they don't have children, playing in the World Series to give it the kind of atmosphere that is present in Williamsport, Pennsylvania for the Little League World Series. And I think we've generated a momentum and a relationship with actually their headquarters in Williamsport, that they really have confidence to continue to come back. And the way we do business, and we play a supportive mechanism in this, is we try to make sure there's never a reason for them to change their mind on their selection of Portland. And we always try to find reasons for them to say, wow, we got treated really nicely. They really do appreciate, our selection of Portland. So it's a great event for us.
Awesome.
Yeah. Has a Portland team ever won it, or an Oregon team won it?
Not recently, but we do have a representative. But I'll tell you, those teams in Texas are pretty tough to beat. They're draw from a lot more young girl athletes. Yeah. This is one, Mayor Wheeler, that you actually presided at a recent press conference. This is one that we've played another supporting role. This was one that I didn't think really would come to Portland. It was a long shot, but sometimes long shots work. And now there will be a major IndyCar Racing event that's coming Labor Day. They're projecting over a $12 million economic impact. We did our small part in facilitating the recruitment of it, and we're still helping them right now. And we think that this will be attended by people from all over the Northwest and really the whole Western region. There are huge auto racing fans in this country, and we've been without a major race like this for well over a decade. And so we're expecting big things, and I believe there's a 3-year contract in place for this, which will give it a chance to really get its roots going and really be successful over Labor Day, which is the perfect weekend when we want our hotels filled up. That normally wouldn't be. So it's another great event.
Yeah, that's great.
That
Thank
we're
you.
proud to be a part of. So now this is really for the next reporting period, but because it happened so recently, the Phil Knight 80 Invitational Basketball Tournament, once again, we're the only city in the country that could accommodate this, having the Moda Center and the VMC next to each other, having 24 games, 3 days. 82.2 million people reached worldwide. We'll have the economic impact next year. I expect it's going to be an overwhelming economic impact, and it got huge reviews, and the games were terribly exciting, and we couldn't be more proud to be a part of that. This last weekend, we were part of helping to host the U.S. Fencing North American Cup. We had 9 Olympians fencing, 2,000 participants, 2,000 fencers, well over a $2 million economic impact. And coming up in February, once again in the VMC, Veterans Memorial Coliseum, we'll have 5,000 skaters, coaches, and families and fans competing for the U.S. Synchronized Skating Championships. Well over a $2 million economic impact, and one of the most entertaining things you'll ever see in Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Bids for future events. We were the only city that actually won 3 NCAA bids for basketball, 2 women's regionals coming up in 2019 and 20. Those will be held at the Moda Center, and a men's first and second round also to be held at the Moda Center. We feel very proud. Our partner with that is Oregon State, the Rose Quarter, and Travel Portland. Currently bidding for the National Association of Sports Commissions Symposium. This is a huge convention with over 1,000 attendees. This is one of the first bids we're making with the new headquarters hotel and the Oregon Convention Center. We're optimistic on that. Other activities, I am very delighted to be on the Oversight Committee along with Susan Hartnett for design and construction of what is going to be a spectacular 4,000-seat expansion so that, Commissioner Nick Fish can really even enjoy the soccer games even more than he normally does. And I know, Commissioner Fritz, you're a soccer fan as well.
Well, you don't think I will enjoy the soccer games more?
Well, I've seen you with your family, and I've seen you enjoying it with the Timber scarves and everything as well.
Yeah, we love the Timbers, and we're Thorns fans, too.
Of course, absolutely. This will look absolutely spectacular from both the inside and the outside, and I know the city's a partner in this, and we couldn't be more excited to be a part of it. And lastly, there is a small local group that has tremendous credentials that's pursuing Major League Baseball for Portland. We have helped guide them, and they recently, their work has resulted in the commissioner of Major League Baseball saying that Portland is on their radar for expansion. This is a long-term proposition. But Portland, at some point, we have the demographics already to justify Major League Baseball. It's only a question of time when Major League Baseball decides whether they're going to announce an expansion, and when they do, I believe we'll be ready.
And given what you've just said about the importance of the Moda Center and the Veterans Memorial Coliseum, I'm sure you've told them that the Coliseum is off limits for
absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. And then this last slide may actually be my favorite because really, Mayor Wheeler, it addresses something that you just wrote about, the problem of homelessness. And you mentioned that it's not an issue easily tackled, but it's multifaceted in terms of its solutions. Well, as a small sports authority, we're playing a small part. We're partnering with Street Soccer USA to identify homeless youth or kids who are likely to be homeless, and introduce soccer to them. We're doing this in East Portland and other places. And this is really to get them into a sport where they feel valued, they develop friendships, and they feel more part of the community. And it really is something in our small way to address a problem that I know that is something that is very important to the city. and hopefully it yields great results. I mean, it's a very rewarding program, and we're just really getting started. We got started on it this year, and we hope that it blossoms.
Have you been in contact with the Parks for New Portlanders folks? Parks for New
Yes.
Portlanders?
Yes, we will be.
Well, yeah, I mean, because that started with refugees in refugee camps playing soccer as the one thing that they could do to have fun. And so it really would...
It seems like it would fit perfectly.
Exactly, yes. And certainly anything that my staff can do to help with this would be happy to do so.
Okay, great. That's a great input. And so thank you for that, Commissioner Fritz. So the summary is that obviously there's a terrific partnership we have with the City of Portland and with Susan, the City Program Manager. If you added up all the actual and projected economic impact we've had over the last year, it's about $30 million. And we have become nationally and internationally renowned as a sports destination. And I want to make sure that the three of you and our missing commissioners feel that the success that we're kind of bragging about is really our mutual success, because it wouldn't be possible without the partnerships that we've had with you, because you know, I've learned that no one entity can do it all on their own. It's a team, and you've been great team players. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Fish.
So when we accept the report, we'll get to say some embarrassing things about you, Drew. But I wanted to ask you a few things off the report. Will we see grass at Providence Park in my lifetime?
I would hope so. I think to the extent, I mean, as you know, they are offering the state-of-the-art turf that's better than any turf in the world. And they make sure that that is the case every other year. To the extent that engineering can come up with a grass that'll grow in the shadows of the stadium and maintain durability for the use, you know, I think there's the possibility is that. I think that the chief concern right now is that it is a community field, and grass.
That would have to be up for
right, and I'm not sure that's what they're interested in sacrificing. But I know I have ultimate faith that the Timbers will do the right thing for what's possible.
So you have your crystal ball.
Okay.
In the next 10 years, is it more likely we'll have a baseball team, a football team, or a hockey team?
Well,
based on just reading the tea leaves.
No, sure. The easiest of those is an NHL team,
simply
because we have the venue that's really ready to go.
And why did Seattle just ace us out for a team?
No, I don't think that's the case. No matter what they do with Key Arena, it's not a better venue than what we have right now for hockey at Moda Center. Major League Baseball and the NFL are certainly in the cards. We've got another group that's interested in the NFL. I believe that if, and the Major League Baseball commissioner is actually a classmate of mine, and I know that he'll want to have a legacy of expanding the league by at least 2 teams. If he does that, I've got to believe that Portland will be one of those 2 teams.
2 other questions. First of all, a comment just to you and to Susan and everyone who was involved in Phil Knight and PK 80.
Yes.
How exciting.
It was terrific.
I watched most of the games on TV. They were fantastic. The quality of the games, the drama. Who knew Duke was so great? I mean, it was fantastic. And here's the other thing. I didn't go to any of the games live, but I ran into fans everywhere in Portland. Wherever I turned, there were people. And I knew they were fans because they were all wearing their college colors. And, you know, downtown was packed. And just, you know, the idea about leveraging Nike and Mr. Knight's, you know, presence here for an event like that was extraordinary. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. And it was, and we were a small part of that as well. But it was a great way to honor a legend that's been very generous, Phil Knight, to this community. 118,000 people showed up at the games. And the games themselves wound up with the #1 and #2 team winning in the nation. And we couldn't be more pleased. The Rose Quarter did a fabulous job. I mentioned at our board meeting last night with the Blazers and Chris Oxley that that was as hard or harder than running the Olympics basketball tournament, because you had 24 games in 2 different venues within 3 days. I mean, it was just running, and there were no hitches. and it all worked fabulously. And the most common comment that I'm getting right now is, when can we do it again? And so who
Well,
knows
when does he
that-
turn 160? I don't know. We would start playing. But the other thing is, I want to just put something on your radar and on Doug's radar and on Jim's radar. You know, in 2020, Tokyo is going to have the Olympics.
Yes.
And there's already talk of how can we in Oregon leverage the relationship that we have with Japan, because obviously we're a prime destination of Japanese tourists. And the mayor and I have both had visits from one of the mayors that has, you know, of a city that's within Tokyo, and he's the mayor of the city that has all the colleges and universities. And they've talked about doing some exchange, where maybe we send some culture over there, they send something back, and we kind of do a plan. But you know, given what we learned with the Major League All-Star Game, where we started planning over a year before the event, I think it's not too soon to start thinking, how can we capitalize on Tokyo 2020? And in particular, how can we go beyond sports and think about art and culture? So I ask that you put that on your radar, and that we start early on convening some meetings to talk about how do we really capitalize on this.
Right, and as I recall, you were a major part of the committee for that MLS game, All-Star game, years before it came. And you saw the results, that it was a terrific event. And I think you're right on the mark to think that we might have a chance to partner with that 2020 Olympics and do some exchanges. So great idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, unless you had any other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to accept the report.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Fish, a second from Commissioner Fritz. Please call the roll, Carla.
Fritz.
Well, thank you for taking the time to come and do the report, and thanks to Susan Hartnett, who was probably her idea to make sure that that was to be a condition of our new relationship. Sports is obviously not the biggest challenge facing our city today. It's maybe not even the biggest opportunity. What it is, though, is the great leveler and something. To play soccer, all you need is 2 sets of sweaters for the goalposts and a ball. And people don't have to be able to speak the language in order to be good to be the best at that. So that's one of the reasons that I have been a lifelong sports fan, is another being that when I'm watching a game, I'm not thinking about the rest of the problems that are my job to take care of or are facing other people. And I think for all of us, having that space is really important. And then as a city commissioner, as you've pointed out, the economic impact of all these people coming to Oregon, coming to Portland, spending their money in the restaurants is fabulous. And that is, you know, when people say, well, we shouldn't be wasting time on that, well, we're investing money to get that economic benefit and those jobs. So thank you very much for the work that you do. Thank you for your ongoing volunteering. Mayor Wheeler said yesterday that he always respected Mayor Vera Katz and also always thought of her as Jesse's mother because they went to school together. I will always think of you as Joey's dad.
Oh, thank you.
Joey and my son played football on the PIL winning football team at Wilson High School. And that's another of the great things I like about sports and about Portland, is that people are not in one category. We see each other in other places. I'm also mindful that I've seen you in a lot of places that I was not expecting to see you at. And the one that comes to mind is when we were successful in getting the African American leaders to play golf, their golf tournament here. And that was when a group that, the fact that it was 100 degrees when they were here, they were from the South and they were quite used to that. And they probably appreciated the breeze. So thank you for all that you've done. I look forward to seeing what's next in your career. Aye.
Fish.
Well, first of all, thank you for this annual report, and we look forward to celebrating these achievements every year. Doug, thank you for all the time that you've volunteered to make these things happen. I've been involved in a number of complicated things in the city, and I've often wondered if there wasn't someone from Shields Oblitz at the table, would we have gotten there? And really appreciate your contribution really to the overall civic pride and your volunteerism. So thank you. Jim, welcome to the new job. It's a great relief to me to hear that you're a UP graduate. So we got the grass field thing solved easily. They figured it out. We can figure it out. And to my friend Drew, you know, we could spend all afternoon telling stories. I think Drew is the only professional football player I ever met and knew personally. Over the last 9 years of my service on the council and Amanda's service on the council, you've been the singular cheerleader for sports. You once said something to me that I've never forgotten when I asked you, you know, what's our strength in sports in Oregon? And you said, one of the challenges is we're so good in so many areas that it's hard to brand Oregon. And you went on to explain that, you know, we're a world-class destination for golf. We're a world-class destination for track and field. You went through all the areas where we're great. And so how do you establish an identity when there's so many things we do well? Well, the fact is you've been a tremendous leader at the helm of the Oregon Sports Authority, and you've been a great colleague of everyone who sits up here, and I just want to personally thank you for all your great work. And you know, up until now, we had to pay you to do this job. Now, the fact that we can recruit you to do this as a volunteer is unbelievable. But I
Count on me.
Thank you for your service, and thank you for making Portland a better place. You've had a unique impact on our city, and we're grateful for that. Aye.
Wheeler.
Drew, I will miss you in this capacity. You've had a good run and you've had a long run. I know this isn't the end by any stretch of the imagination. I know you're going to be actively involved.
Yes.
I want to reiterate again that I appreciated serving on your board, even though it was only briefly. But that gave me a keen appreciation for what it is that you do. Number one, you are opportunistic and you see sports as an opportunity for economic prosperity for the community. I appreciate that you're always looking at opportunities for access as well. And I think the program that you mentioned that tries to engage homeless or potentially homeless youth in sports is an opportunity to bring them in and help them feel appreciated and loved and part of a bigger community, I think speaks volumes not only about the mission of the Oregon Sports Authority, but about you and your leadership personally. Access has always been fundamental. And third and finally, I want to thank the Oregon Sports Authority for not always chasing the brightest and the shiniest object when it comes to pursuing sports opportunities for our community. And I was smiling as I was looking at some of these, you don't call it hacky sack, I'm sorry, what is it now called?
FOOTBAG.
Footbagging. And there's a story there that I'm sure you'll share with me over a beer at a later date. But I think it's great that we find opportunities for sports that maybe aren't as broadly seen in combination with those that are, like the PK80 opportunities. And you're remembering that not everybody participates in football or basketball or baseball, but there are many, many other opportunities to get people active and engaged and being part of a participant and part of a team, part of something larger than themselves, and engaged in athletic activities that are good for their health and good for their minds. And that well-rounded approach to sports has served this city and this state extremely well. Your leadership has been fantastic. And Jim, I welcome you in this new capacity. You obviously have big shoes to fill, but as everybody around this table said, you're the right person for the next phase of the Oregon Sports Authority. And Doug, as always, thanks for your altruism and your focus on the community and your leadership at the Oregon Sports Authority. It's greatly appreciated. I vote aye, obviously. The report is accepted. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Item 1352, ratify a collective bargaining agreement between the City and District Council of Trade Unions relating to the terms and conditions of employment of represented employees in the bargaining unit.
Colleagues, Commissioner Udaly is unable to attend today's council session. Her failure to participate in today's session would jeopardize the public interest. That's fine. What I'm reading isn't something of my own concoction. This is PCC 3.02.25, attendance by electronic communication. So I'm required to read this. Commissioner Udaly is unable to attend today's council session, or failure to participate in today's council session would jeopardize the public interest, health, safety, or welfare. Therefore, unless there's an objection by any member of the council, Commissioner Udaly is participating in today's hearing by teleconference for agenda item 1352. Is there any objection? None. Good. Commissioner Saltzman was provided the opportunity to appear by teleconference or other electronic communication. He was unable to participate. Hearing no objection, Carla, please have Commissioner Udaly participate by teleconference, which I believe she already is doing, correct?
Commissioner, are you on the line?
Yes.
All right. Excellent. Hello, Commissioner.
I guess her sound isn't really great, but.
Okay.
She may not be as
It's terrible.
communicative today as she wants to be.
Yeah, no, there she is. There she is by photo. Colleagues, the parties began their work last October and through a collective effort reached an agreement which benefits the city and the employees covered by the contract. I want to thank the city's bargaining team and the union for coming together to bring this to a successful completion. The hard work paid off and made sure that both the workers of our city and financial sustainability were both protected. I also want to thank the union for working with us to bring language in to expand equity for our workers and for working collaboratively to get to better solutions. The city secured several important changes, among them the adoption of its wellness health insurance, which incentivizes employees to have a preventative medical examination at least every other year, a change in the promotion language, which will reduce barriers to equity in our workforce, the addition of recruitment incentives so the city is better able to compete for qualified, experienced employees. The union secured several improvements and enhancements for its members, a cost of living adjustment of between 1% and 5% on July 1st of the next 3 years, wage adjustments for selected classifications, early wage increases for police administrative classifications retroactive to July 1st, 2015, and a 1.65% increase to all other DCTU classifications, those classifications that are not already receiving market or equity wage adjustments. Thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioners, for allowing us to present.
Yes, Mayor, there's something I wanted to bring up.
Excuse me, you are out of order, and if you disrupt, you're going to be asked to leave. You are, I'm sorry, you're going to have to leave. This is, excuse me, this is not your living room. This is a business environment.
And another one was, I'm leaving right now. And another one was given the order not to.
Welcome to City Council.
IPR. What do you have to say about that?
I have to say goodbye. Thank you for playing. Good afternoon. Welcome. Sorry for that brief interruption.
No problem.
Harassment and intimidation in the city of Portland.
Excuse me, this is a violation of council rules, and you're going to have to leave. No, you're going to have to leave.
By your Portland police
Carla.
officers. An impromptu interview on the public
Happens whenever Rob Wheaton is before us.
Seeing a stalking order against me as an individual.
To go.
As somebody who is poor, without employment.
This is not your chamber, sir. You need to leave. You're in violation of council rules.
$150,000 bail, as if the Eighth Amendment has never been heard of in this city.
Sir, if you do not leave, you're going to be arrested for trespassing.
And I will continue to act as the independent police review.
Well, that's exciting. Sorry.
Didn't see that one coming.
I did not. Please continue.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for allowing us to come and talk about the DCTU new contract. For the record, I'm Cyrilda Summers-McGee, and I am the Bureau of Human Resources HR Director. Joining me also is John Udo, who was the chief negotiator on this contract, as well as Rob Wheaton, who is the council representative for AFSCME. I'd like to start by thanking Anna Canway, who just recently retired as our HR director. She played a huge role in bringing this contract to conclusion and was an invaluable resource to the city during that time. So we were incredibly grateful that she was here for that process. And I'd also like to share just a little bit of information about myself as your new HR director as it relates to labor. I grew up in Michigan, and my family were all members of the union. We worked in the factories for Ford and GM most of my life. We had a really sound livelihood because we were members of the union. And so the union played a huge role in my life. I used to be a part of the union as a summer laborer in the factories and foundries in Michigan, and I've also had long-standing relationships with the union in Oregon since I've been here. I worked with them at Kaiser Permanente, at the Oregon Department of Education, as well as at Prosper Portland before I came over to the city, where I had wonderful relationships with all of those stakeholders. So with that being said, I want to transition really quickly to talk about what our future goal is, the Bureau of Human Resources, as it relates to our relationship with the union. We want to establish and build a sustainable relationship with them that is based on being mutually respectful of one another and hearing each other out. And so I've shared that with the labor team, and it's also just a major priority in my life, and I believe it's a major priority for the city. So I wanted to make sure I shared that with you all today. So John Udo is going to share a few highlights from the contract that where he was the chief negotiator, and then we're going to transition to wrapping up to a vote.
Jonathan Uto, Labor Relations, Human Resources, representing the DC2 Collective Bargaining Agreement. It's a 3-year contract that continues to provide a competitive total compensation package, which includes wages, benefits, and retirement security. It targets labor dollars that best supports the recruitment and retention of a highly skilled workforce. It meets the city's wellness program goals. It removes language that was seen as an equity barrier, and it reduces administrative burdens, freeing up resources that can be reinvested into the bargaining unit. So, and I'm here if you have any questions.
That was the most succinct statement of a contract I've ever heard, John.
This is why John is here. He's masterful at this. So we also want to thank the District of Council Trade and Unions for their willingness to collaborate and compromise with the city throughout this process. Each side made concessions, but we think that we got to a really beautiful bargaining agreement. We specifically like to thank Rob Wheaton to my left, and he'll have an opportunity to share some thoughts. Donna Hammond with IBEW, and Pat Christensen, who represents the Plumbers and Fitters Union just behind us here, for working tirelessly to get us to a conclusion on this contract. So with that being said, may I pass the baton over to Rob?
Thank you. Overall, we're very happy with the agreement. There's always a few little things that we need to do. We feel like we left behind, but nevertheless, we feel like we got a very decent agreement this time. Really appreciate the help on part of John and HR, and as well as City Council in reaching that agreement.
Can I make a request? Because I know we have some union presidents and leadership here. Mayor, could we have them just acknowledged and identified and ask them to stand? So, you know, Rob Martineau is here. Would you stand? Rob is the president of Local 189. Ask me. Who else is here?
I don't see anyone else here. Besides Patrick Christensen, of course, who we previously acknowledged.
You took the time to come. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, thank you for being here.
So that concludes our presentation. Do you have any questions for us?
Any questions, colleagues? Is there anybody signed up for public testimony?
No one signed up.
Very good. Please call the roll.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
Well, welcome, Director Summers McGee. I'm glad that appreciate that you were able to come in and close this out. That's it's not usually, it's often like that at the beginning, but not always. So don't take it personally.
I won't.
These were very difficult negotiations. I think that needs to be said. I'm thankful that an agreement was reached and we did avoid the potential strike. I'm very glad that the members of the unions have ratified the agreement and for the leadership for recommending ratification. The city's wellness plan now has, I believe, for all the unions, for all employees, an incentive for employees to get a primary healthcare provider and see that person at least once every 2 years. And I want to take this opportunity to remind any city employees who may be watching that deadline for having that wellness check is coming up. There are still some workplace appointments available, and our goal on the council is to encourage every single city employee to continue receiving 95% coverage of their benefits by having that wellness check. Working together, we can both have healthier employees and decrease the cost to the taxpayers. And that's, I think, what everybody wants. This is an expensive contract. There are some important changes that do advance equity, as John mentioned, and control those healthcare costs. I personally was disappointed that the longevity increases that have been proposed by the city were changed into an across-the-board increase. As somebody who's still a member of the Oregon Nurses Association, I received step increases for the entire 22 years that I worked at OHSU, and I would have done had I stayed there. And I think it's important that we show financially that we value employees who don't want to advance into management, who want to just be really, really good at doing the job that they do. And it shouldn't just be cost of living increases as soon as you top out at the maximum schedule for that. So I know there's also a lot more conversations to be had. I'm particularly happy to see the increased pay for police sports specialists. Thank you, Rob Wheaton, for highlighting that, I think, in 2 successive budgets. And that is a beginning of equity for one of the female-dominated positions in the city, and there's many more that needs to come. Thank you, as was mentioned, to Director Anna Canwit, who taught me a lot over the 9 years that I've been here and who did the lion's share of the work on this agreement. I know that the unions would say didn't always agree with her, but you always knew where she was coming from, and I think that's a really important attribute as the city is engaging in bargaining, that everybody is upfront and that there are no hidden agendas. Thank you, Jarrell Geddes, who was just in the back there. Sorry. Jarrell Geddes, and the Mayor's Office, who also helped reach the final agreement. Finally, thanks to Tim Crail on my staff. He's now my Chief of Staff, but for 9 years he's also been my Labour liaison and will continue to be so. So all the union members know that if you need to talk to me, I understand how the Bureau of Human Resources is designated by code and charter to be the city's bargaining entity. I also know that sometimes listening and understanding the concerns can, and helping to translate those from one side to the other, whichever way it might go, is an appropriate role for me as a city commissioner, and one that I will be honoured to continue to do. Thank you very much, everybody. Aye.
Fish.
Well, first of all, congratulations to the parties, to the city's bargaining team and to our District Council trade unions. Congratulations for reaching a deal. There was a lot of hard bargaining on both sides, but this is a fair deal and one that I am going to enthusiastically support. We have a new HR director. We have a new contract. We have a new mayor. And we are starting today to begin to lay the groundwork for the next contract. And I think I appreciate the comments that we've heard so far about the spirit in which we are going to enter into these new discussions, new negotiations. This is a perilous time to be in both public service and to be a public employee. We don't have to belabor that. In DC, in the courts, in states like Wisconsin, this is a very difficult time to be a public employee. I'm proud to live in a city, however, that has set a standard for how we treat the public servants that work for us. We have, by policy, mandated strict neutrality in any organizing campaign. We have been in the vanguard of using card check as a way of allowing people to express their preferences. And I think if you look overall at the city and compare us to other local governments, we probably have a pretty good track record in terms of the number of grievances and arbitrations and ULPs that are pending, and it varies by bureau. But I will tell you, in the utilities, we have very few because there's a lot of problem solving going on. This contract required a lot of work at the end and a lot of stretching and a lot of creative thinking. So again, thanks to all of our partners. Mayor, you played a role at the end to bring this together, and I want to thank you for doing it. This has been your first year, a significant accomplishment. I want to thank on my team Sonia Schmansky, who is my chief of staff and my labor liaison, and who spends a lot of time with our labor partners talking about current issues and how we can get them right. We don't always agree, but we have an open door policy, and I think that has produced a lot of good. You know, this took a long time to get here, and yet I sort of jokingly said earlier that tomorrow we begin to prepare the ground for the next collective bargaining agreement. In fact, the duty to bargain is not limited to a contract or a contractual period of time. A duty of bargain extends to every day of every workday of every day of every year. And I want us to continue to work towards what we aspire to be, which is an employer of choice, a place where people want to come work, and a place where we treat our employees fairly and where we provide great services to the people we represent. So thank you all for a job well done. Aye.
Wheeler.
I'll just extend my thanks. Thanks to the Bureau of Human Resources. Thank you to the Labor Negotiations team. Thank you to DCTU and your bargaining team, Rob and Rob. It was good work that was done together, and we had lots and lots of conversations, some of them dynamic, all of them important. And so I'm very appreciative for the work that we did, and I'm appreciative of the time that we spent together. I'm appreciative of my colleagues. None of this gets done in a vacuum, and all of us had the opportunity to be heard and have a say and consider ideas and options. And I want to thank the DCTU bargaining team for flexibility and working with us to ultimately get to where we all wanted to be, which was in agreement. And this was a hard-fought agreement all around, and I think it is a fair agreement, and all of us had to bend a little bit, all of us had to compromise, all of us had to give something to get to where we are today. But ultimately, I think it is in the best interest of our employees, and it is in the best interest of the community that we serve. So thank you all very, very much for sticking to this, even through the more challenging times. Thank you. And thank you at large to all of our employees. You are appreciated, and I hope that our coming together on this contract is tangible evidence that you are appreciated. Thank you. I vote aye. The ordinance is accepted. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You should note that Commissioner Udaley will be disconnecting.
Thank you, Commissioner Udaley. We appreciate it. Next item, please.
Item 1353, presentation on the Get Portland Moving pilot, ramping up coordination of activities in the right-of-way.
And I understand Emily Trist is coming up. Very good. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioner Fritz, and Commissioner Fish. My name is Emily Trich. I'm the Portland Bureau of Transportation's Asset Manager.
I'm John Wilson. I'm a traffic engineer with PBOT.
Thank you.
Jana LaFreniere, Get Portland Moving Right-of-Way Coordinator with PBOT.
Thank you. And Emily, I apologize. I mispronounced your name.
That's okay.
It was misspelled, and sorry about that.
I go by anything. By
Very good.
Trich.
Thank you.
Well, I'm delighted to share with you the report from the Get Portland Moving pilot program through 2017. Around this time last year, Council approved a resolution to enhance coordination and communication efforts in the right-of-way. Responding to an historic year of construction in the Central City, the Get Portland Moving pilot was formed to identify impacts and solutions to maintain mobility in all modes. This was done through regular meetings and by employing existing technology to support the timely delivery of capital projects, address maintenance needs, reduce congestion, and preserve safety for all. Today we'll speak to the successes of the Get Portland Moving pilot and express our interest in continuing this enhanced coordination work citywide. We'll also introduce the solutions that will help us to be successful. You'll hear that the whole city, its agencies, utilities, and residents stand to benefit from advancing investment in right-of-way management. Between the city's aging infrastructure, rapid growth, and the celebrations and events that make Portland a unique and livable city, more than 70 activities in the right-of-way were anticipated in 2017. Everything from sewer and street maintenance, improvements to Pioneer Square, fixing our streets activities, to light rail and bridge improvements. Travel across all modes were impacted.
And I'm assuming you're just showing a section of the city, but there are projects everywhere else as well.
Absolutely. Indeed. In March of 2017, leaders from the City of Portland, ODOT, Multnomah County, TriMet, and Portland Streetcar came together to kick off Get Portland Moving as an ambitious effort to bring a new level of coordination to construction and maintenance work on the streets of the Central Business District. Through the Get Portland Moving pilot, more than 30 conflicts and opportunities were identified. By responding to these needs, we're able to deliver projects more efficiently, and some of the major work performed this year in coordination with agency partners include the Pioneer Courthouse Square maintenance, MAX improvements, including signal and rail upgrades, as well as drainage and asphalt repair to 3,200 feet of 140-year-old public sewer pipes, and maintenance work on or underneath 5 of the 12 county bridges crossing the Willamette. This includes the Broadway Bridge, Burnside Bridge, and also the Morrison Bridge. It includes also coordination around the Multnomah County Courthouse development and PBOT's capital paving project at First and Main on the west end of the Hawthorne Bridge. In addition to these, there were about 30 lane miles of preventative maintenance paving and nearly 6,000 Acorn streetlights converted to LEDs citywide. Some of the successes in coordination include addressing our capital and maintenance needs, basically the ability to get the work done. We also saw cost avoidance by piggybacking on another agency's traffic controls, public outreach, sharing a trench, or by performing pavement restoration once instead of multiple times along the corridor. We're able to see substantial costs not incurred by public agencies. We estimate approximately $3 million of cost avoidance through trench restoration in 2017, and another $2 million in shared closures, traffic controls, and outreach. These are real savings to Portlanders resulting from enhanced coordination, leveraging opportunities as they arise, and avoiding conflicts that would previously require last-minute schedule changes or shifting around of crews. In addition to these, we're able to minimize mobility impacts for all users by maintaining multimodal access, combine efforts in public outreach, and ensure consistency in traffic controls and in temporary street use permits.
Well, you may remember last summer was quite busy with construction downtown, and in managing all those projects, we identified a couple folks that weren't following the rules, weren't on our map, so we weren't able to coordinate their work and maintain mobility. One of these in particular got a lot of attention. There's a lane closure across the Burnside Bridge, and it resulted in issuing some fines. Get Portland, some of the first fines I think that we've really issued for such violations of the right-of-way use. And
can I ask you a question, because this slide is great. Let's take the violation that occurred on Southwest 12th Avenue.
Yeah.
I know that corner because on the west side to the south is where I get what's left of my haircut. And, Turner Construction is not just some new player in the scene. I mean, they're a highly regarded company, does a lot of work.
That's right.
So, I mean, I think it's great that they were fined for violating their permit, but what did we learn about the genesis of something like this happening? What went wrong that gave them the impression that they could take out 2 lanes when they were only given a permit for 1?
That's a great question. Thank you much, Commissioner Fish, for that. It's interesting. I issued the fine on that in particular. My group manager informed me about this action. Said, I saw this closure and it seemed like it was dangerous. So we looked at it. We recognized that it was not permitted work. We issued a fine to Turner. Their executive team came in and met with us and said, what went wrong? we asked kind of the same thing. Well, you know, you're aware that you have to have permits for lane closures and that type of thing. And it turned out that there was a decision was made amongst the crew that was working on that particular day. They had to get some work done, and they didn't have, you know, the appropriate permits in place, but the damages to their schedule would be so much that they're willing to take the risk, see if they didn't get caught. Well, they got caught. And
did they know that they were wrong?
yeah, they absolutely did know that they were not allowed. In that particular case, they were allowed to take there's 3 lanes going north there. They were allowed to use the right lane, and they decided they needed the right lane and the middle lane, which caused a bunch of problems, and it looked really unsafe, which is my group manager recognized it as, this doesn't look quite right. Now their executive team came in, they were very apologetic. They said, this is not how we want to be doing business, so what do we need to do differently? And you know, we outlined that, you know, if you had gotten a permit or if you had been maybe in closer contact with us, we could have helped respond to this like urgent need. And I think that just by establishing those relationships with their team as well as with our team of inspectors and engineers, we can help be more reactive to allow them to complete their work safely, which is kind of the central concept of Get Portland Moving. I would say having everyone on a map so that we're all around a table, whether it's virtually or in real life, so that when something comes up, we know who to contact to figure out how we can get all of our work done at the same, you know, and doing it safely.
Do we, now, you know, sometimes we end up going after the party that's the most accessible. But, you know, construction companies are also under a lot of pressure from developers to stay on schedule and the like. Did we determine in this instance that there was any culpability by the developer?
In this particular instance, absolutely not. There was no, the developer did not make the decision. It was truly the construction manager, the superintendent of the site said, I have a crane delivery coming in. I underestimated how much street I'd need in order to take this delivery. And so, but I don't have a permit. What am I going to do? I can delay the crane. It sets back my project schedule 2 weeks. I don't really know if I would attribute that to the developer, in that, because it's reasonable to expect that they set their project schedule and the contractors need to give, you know, thought into what actions they need to complete in order to meet that schedule. So in my opinion, this was really Turner Construction's fault, that their site superintendent, they should have said, well, I guess they should have done a better job of anticipating what closures they needed, but in the future, now that they have our, you know, we have a closer relationship, we'll be able to help them react quicker. You know.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so while Get Portland Moving isn't directly part of our enforcement and finding actions, we support that by helping show all the different projects that are on the map and who to get a hold of in order to resolve issues, so that we don't end up, we don't really want to find contractors or slow down their work. We want everyone to be able to complete all of the tasks they're asked to do. Thanks.
So moving forward with Get Portland Moving, we see 2017, rather than being an outlier, could be the new normal for Portland. We expect the amount of right-of-way use to continue to grow, particularly as Portland continues to grow, particularly as our assets continue to degrade or deteriorate. And also our capital programs are growing as well. BES and PBOT both anticipate growth in their capital work in the coming years. So in order to address these needs going forward, we'd like to expand this effort citywide in 2018. We'd also like to recommit the city bureaus and our partner agencies to continue this work in coordination and communication together. This will help us accomplish our goals, our shared goals of maintaining aging infrastructure, responding to rapid growth, and minimizing travel disruptions.
How are you going to do that?
Well, I'm glad you asked.
Sorry, you were about to tell me. Do you continue with the rest of your spiel if you were?
Oh, okay. I promise I'll answer it. How about that? So what we need to do to find success? Yes.
You know, I can give you one very specific example of how we were going to do that. I know that earlier this week you heard an LID. You remember that?
Yeah.
And I think one of the questions that came up was, well, when Andrew, I believe when he did his site visit, he recognized some paint on the ground. That was his only indication that there was another project happening in the area. With Get Portland Moving, you know, we were focused only on the core this last summer. In the future, we hope to expand citywide. Andrew would be able to use that map to see what other capital projects are happening and then bring in those potential LIDs or those LIDs he has on the back burner in order to help move those other projects forward. So, but without sort of a central clearinghouse, a map really that just shows all the different projects, he's got to discover it by just finding paint out on the ground.
So that's what you're about to go into in terms of how are you going to do that coordination?
Absolutely,
Continue.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So in order to find success, we're looking at technology tools to improve when and how we coordinate, and also identify the champions within each agency to help us to gather and report the data. Where that's concerned, we've already received letters of support for renewing and broadening the Get Portland Moving effort from Water Bureau, BES, TriMet, and Multnomah County. And then where technology is concerned, PBOT is currently in the process of evaluating off-the-shelf right-of-way management solutions that, together with the business processes and coordination strategies identified in the pilot, will help the city to better maintain right-of-way use. So as an example, this indicates how our technology is evolving. On the far left side, this is our current CIP map. This is City Bureau CIP activities. For the Get Portland Moving pilot, that's the middle graphic here, we used a web map, and it shows capital and maintenance activities and goes beyond just city. It includes other public agencies as well. Moving forward, we'd like to move into a system that allows dynamic data entry, participation by private utilities as well as public agencies, and automatic notification of conflicts and opportunities in the right-of-way. This new technology would reduce staff time in meetings. For this pilot year, we've had more than 50 meetings to talk about the different activities upcoming. It would help all users understand what's going on in the right-of-way and help us all to quickly and easily resolve complaints. If your office or mine gets a phone call from a concerned citizen about a project, we're not going on a wild goose chase trying to find out whose project it is and how long it will last. It would all be in one place. So I can tell you that other cities around the country have already implemented such solutions. City of Chicago, for example, is already enjoying $17 million of cost avoided each year from better managing their right-of-way, and that's through better preserving their assets. And then our friends in Seattle just implemented their system in August, and in 2 months have already seen more than $500,000 in savings. And so this shows that managing work together both decreases disruption on our roads and also saves taxpayer dollars.
Looking ahead in 2018 and 2019, we noticed that BES and PBOT are among other agencies are ramping up capital improvement work and paving work, and Get Portland Moving hopes to support that work through information sharing and coordination of meetings. We hope that all the bureaus commit to keeping their databases up to date to share that information and make it accessible to everyone within the city and outside of the city with our agency partners. Some current 2018 highlights that we've started collaborating on is the Burnside Bridge maintenance, which will be 2 lanes will be closed in each direction, and we collaborated with Multnomah County, PBOT collaborated with Multnomah County and TriMet to streamline TriMet buses through the construction zone. ODOT has approached PBOT on a collaboration for their I-5, I-84 interchange ramp maintenance. There'll be two closures of the interchange ramps for 2 weeks, full closures 24/7 this summer. So PBOT is working to mitigate traffic impacts on local streets. The Providence Park expansion and the press blocks, we brought together a group, TriMet, the city bureaus, and Portland Public Schools. And in that meeting, TriMet and PBOT avoided a potential conflict. BES and Water got early notification of Portland Public Schools rebuild over existing assets. There's another project of 5-week closure of OHSU tram, in which it's been asked for a street closure moratorium during the detour route. And also with the Division Transit project coming up in construction in 2018 and putting together meetings about the other potential work that is going on in Division and collaborating on those efforts.
Commissioner Fish, did you have?
Oh, she's not done yet.
Oh, I just wanted to acknowledge all of the agencies and the partners that were involved, committing their time and efforts in coordinating work around the projects, including leaders, staff, public information officers, project and construction managers, that all met all throughout the year in order to coordinate work, and also TriMet for bringing us together around their West Side Max closure. I think that the citizens of Portland really enjoyed seeing the collaboration on their streets. Thank you very much.
So on behalf of the city's utilities, and I see you have some letters that are attached, I mean, we appreciate being full partners in this, and we're obviously sold on the benefits. There is an irony here, though, because the idea is to coordinate, limit the adverse impacts, and save some money. But the thing that we have the least control over is the bridge closures. And we had a situation in this past year where it seemed like almost every bridge was impaired, and it was virtually impossible to get across. Now, the challenge we have in our bridges is they are owned by multiple different agencies, combined with the fact that the sole authority to raise bridges resides with the Coast Guard, and they have unfettered discretion, and that can have significant impacts. Do you have some thoughts as to how we can better sequence the work on the bridges in concert with what you're doing, so we just don't we don't create a gauntlet for people trying to cross in and out of the city?
Yeah, I can take that.
Please.
Yeah, that's a great example, and I think one of the things that we didn't hear about, and I want to say thank goodness we didn't hear about it, was there were some proposals for the Multnomah County Courthouse to accept the delivery of a crane during one particular, set of dates that two of the other bridges were at full closure, right? And because we were all around a table, and we got a request from, I believe it was Hoffman, the contractor for the Multnomah County Courthouse, we identified that and then met with the county's leadership team to say, what can we adjust one of these schedules or another to help avoid that? Now, I think that was just like one success story that we didn't hear about. It could have been a disaster that we would have probably made the news. But regarding, I guess, your real question, we don't currently have a mobility policy that says you must keep so many bridges open. But I think it's all in the back of our heads that there's only so many accesses out of the core. The west side, we've got Cornell, we've got Highway 26, we've got Barnes, Burnside, Germantown, and I think we want to move forward with the mobility policy. We approached our city traffic engineer, Louis Wardrop, about that, and we're investigating smart ways that other cities have created that policy. It might be as simple as saying, we can only accept so many lanes to be closed at any one time.
And I would encourage you to look at that, because as you know, when there's a lane taken out of Burnside, when a couple other bridges are closed, and this is all important work that has to be done. Let's talk about sequencing.
Right.
What you end up is, I live in Goose Hollow, so Burnside's backed up beyond 23rd.
Right.
Well, that's not good.
No.
And what the kinds of behavior that you see is not very healthy.
Cut through your neighborhood.
There are challenges in Old Town Chinatown that get compounded where you just can't. Oh, yeah. I've been in gridlock situations because of the bridges, and Mayor, I would urge us, because this is truly a cross-jurisdictional thing, because we don't have the final say. But if we're doing all this great work to coordinate the timing of our work and who's doing it at the same time, I think we ought to be thinking about the sequencing of the work on our bridges.
I totally agree.
Because there are times when literally you can't get across the river in this past year because of several bridges being worked on simultaneously. Maybe it was essential, but for example, at BES, we rate the work based on the greatest risk of failure.
Right.
But as I looked at your map, it does seem to me that we still make adjustments based on capitalizing on the fact that we can do a project with PBOT.
That's right.
Even if it isn't the most at-risk piece of infrastructure.
Right.
And this one seems to me purely a question of coordination with other jurisdictions.
Right. Yeah.
And our friends at the county have recommitted to expanding the Get Portland Moving involvement, and they've been a very present force at all of our meetings, bringing sometimes more than half the meeting size is made up of county membership. Also, their commissioner has endorsed this effort in coordination, and I think they've been willing to work with us. For example, on some of the work on Burnside that we recommended shifting the schedule or modifying closures in order to accommodate other uses of the right-of-way.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. They've been really great partners through this, and I'm sure if we wanted to work together towards creating a mobility policy regarding lane closures, I'm certain they'd be happy to come to the table and discuss that.
Well, thank you for the excellent report. I noted in it that it said that we saved $5 million through coordination of closures and alignments of projects. So make sure people know that. You know, we're talking about Seattle's saved $7 million or whatever it was, but we did really well. So it saved the taxpayers' money and the ratepayers' money. I appreciate your explanation about how are we going to coordinate this moving forward. I was actually happy when Andrew Abbey said that he was the one that noticed the markings on it, because we sometimes, I think, rely too much on technology, and there's no substitute for having people with brains in the room who can scope out a lot of things much quicker and more thoroughly than relying on a computer program. So I do hope that you will keep that in mind and continue figuring out who needs to be at those meetings. I do commend Commissioner Fish and the work that you've done on that LIG project by Bridges School, where we've been able to benefit the community as well as the taxpayers at large and the ratepayers. With that in mind, how are we going to go about getting input from Portlanders about how we've done? I mean, this so far has been very much an internal discussion of, yes, and in your impact statement, you say that the impact is that we're trying to make less impact, you know, by coordinating.
Sure.
How, moving forward, could we build into it, for instance, in an LID project, as a pilot project, could we go back to the community that was affected? How did we do? You know, what traffic control measures could have been better? Was the timing of the projects at the best possible time compared with the school closures and such like that?
That's wonderful feedback. Yes, and during this whole pilot program, we had spoke with our modal committees quite a bit, including the pedestrian and bicycle groups, and as well as the freight committee. We also put together an external public-facing website that shared information on closures. It's on the PowerPoint just now, but and as well as a dedicated email address so that any citizen or business owner could contact us and get a response straight away, and several did. In fact, there was some work on East Burnside where some business owners didn't understand what was going on, emailed Move PDX, and they received a response about everything that was going on. Yeah, I share your interest with getting additional feedback from residents about what works and what they'd like to see, and so I'd like to continue to do stakeholder outreach and community discussions. We have been in touch also with the Portland Business Alliance and Venture Portland and some of the other key stakeholders that had interest in the central city. We hope to broaden that as well, and as we expand citywide, to reach out to neighborhood and community groups.
Well, one of the many improvements Commissioner Fish has made since he's been in charge of utilities has been the community outreach, and I know that we're all continuing to look at how do we find more ways to get information to and from people who don't know what is the email address or didn't even know this project was coming. Can we use PTAs? Can we use community organizations other than neighborhood associations and business associations? So I do think that that's a piece that can make this project even better, because it's good that we're doing things more efficiently and cost effectively. It's even better if people know that we are, and if we're taking input from them as to how, if they've got suggestions for what could make it better. I would have to say, Mayor, that once we get the 311 system up and running, that will certainly be a tool that should make coordination a whole lot easier. And still, I believe that there'll continue to need to be thoughtful people who are figuring out who to talk to, who has not yet known to come in and ask the questions. Thank you very much for your work, and thank you for the report. That's really helpful.
Thank you.
A couple of questions. First of all, just an observation. I think that the main point that makes the most difference is the coordination between bureaus and then different government agencies, and making sure that the left hand knows what the right hand is doing and coordinating. So thank you for that. That's super common sense and is a necessary first step. I did have a question about the technology.
Sure.
As I look through this, I see Google, I see Waze. You mentioned that Seattle has an app that does something similar. Is the Seattle app, is that also Waze-based, or is that a different technology platform?
It's a different technology platform. It actually sits on top of a Google map, and currently it's for internal use. The different utilities are able to sign into the system and have different access controls so that your Verizon can't see what your Comcast is doing necessarily, but that the city can better manage and organize what's in the right-of-way.
Is there any economy of scale to working with other jurisdictions on a single technology application or using an existing platform? In other words, does Portland need to invent its own, and Seattle its own, and Denver its own, or is there some collaborative process that could be had here?
Absolutely, yeah. We're in close conversations with our friends in Seattle, Chicago, and Boston as to their technology tools that they've been using. Chicago has been using theirs for more than 7 years. Seattle and Portland have been in discussions about how we get together all of our interests and actually tell the company what it is we want instead of what's available. So we're looking at getting more product through better collaboration between jurisdictions as well. We're very keen on sharing best practices and learning from other cities that have been doing this.
Great, and I appreciate that. This is a subject I didn't know that much about prior to the presentation, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the collaboration between PBOT and BES and TriMet. And others. I think this is really great work, and I'm appreciative.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity.
Very good. Any further comments or questions on this? This is a report, so I'll accept a
So moved.
motion. Commissioner Fish moves.
Second.
Commissioner Fritz gets to second. Please call the roll.
Fritz.
I think something that's really important when you're doing something like that is reporting in on a regular basis. So I hope you'll give us another presentation this time next year to tell us how much even better you've done. Aye.
Fish.
Well, colleagues, my favorite cautionary tale on this was when I was a young person living in New York City. Yes, once upon a time, I was a young person living in New York City, and I lived in an apartment that was overlooked 14th Street, which is a heavily traveled east-west street that gets a lot of truck traffic. And the equivalent of PBOT in New York decided that the road, which was in terrible condition, needed to be upgraded and replaced, reconstructed, and then paved. So it was one of the longest and noisiest and most inconvenient capital construction projects I've ever lived through. And just as they finished the project and repaved 14th Street, and we all, were like thanking God that this was over, the agency that runs the subways in New York that has nothing to do with transportation came into each of the intersections and dug them up because they wanted to do an infrastructure project with the subway that was below 14th Street. And it was the classic example of the left hand and the right hand not coordinated. And what I love about this is, to the extent we're able to, we're trying to coordinate the left hand, the right hand, and particularly the cities lead the three primary infrastructure bureaus, although I think of, actually, under Commissioner Fritz, Parks has become really the fourth big infrastructure bureau. So our four major infrastructure bureaus talking to each other and coordinating. And by the way, the chart you showed that had the green lines around the BES work, colleagues, that, of course, was work that you have given the green light to. That's all the Tabor to the River work. So as we're doing Tabor to the River using gray to green, here along comes transportation saying, how can we also do our piece with a minimal disruption to the residential and business districts along the way? So well done, and I'm pleased to accept the report. Aye.
Wheeler.
Great work. I vote aye. The report's accepted. We're adjourned.
Thank you.